What if I told you that some of the most explosive, heartbreaking, and world-changing events in history never made it into your textbook, not because they weren't important, but because they were too powerful, too disruptive, too inconvenient for the people writing the curriculum? From governments plotting to attack their own citizens, to entire cities burned off the map, to slave rebellions that succeeded and terrified empires. There are stories you were never meant to hear, but you're going to hear them now. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're watching from. This is the history they banned from your classroom, but not from YouTube. This is what the Tulsa Race Massacre looked like. In school, they probably taught you about the Great Depression, about Jim Crow laws, maybe even the Civil Rights Movement. But did anyone ever mention that in 1921, the US government allowed, and maybe even assisted in the bombing of a Black American community on US soil? Let me tell you about Greenwood. In the early 20th century, Greenwood was one of the most prosperous Black communities in America. It had lawyers, doctors, bankers, and entrepreneurs. Black-owned newspapers, schools, libraries, and even a luxury hotel. It was thriving. Then came a rumor that a young Black man had assaulted a white elevator operator with zero evidence. The story spread, a mob formed, tensions escalated, and then Tulsa exploded. Over the course of 18 horrifying hours, white mobs burned over 1,200 homes, looted Black businesses, killed an estimated 300 Black residents, and forced thousands more into internment camps. Planes were seen dropping firebombs onto homes and buildings. Yes, in 1921, airplanes were used to bomb an American neighborhood, and yet for decades there was no mention of this in schools. No memorial, no justice, no reparations. In fact, newspapers deliberately covered it up. Survivors were threatened into silence. Official documents were destroyed or sealed. Why? Because this wasn't just a racist attack. It was a systemic erasure of a powerful symbol of Black excellence and economic independence. And they didn't just destroy the community, they tried to destroy the memory of it. The Haitian Revolution, the slave rebellion that succeeded. Every country loves a good revolution, as long as it's theirs. We're taught about the American Revolution, with its brave patriots fighting for freedom. We hear about the French Revolution, where citizens overthrew monarchy in the name of liberty. But there's one revolution that is almost never discussed, even though it was more radical, more successful, and more terrifying to the world's empires than all the rest. The Haitian Revolution. In 1791, on the island of Saint-Domingue, now Haiti, nearly 500,000 enslaved Africans rose up against their French colonial masters. What followed was a 13-year war of resistance, led by brilliant tacticians like Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. The rebels didn't just fight, they won. They abolished slavery, defeated Napoleon's army, and declared Haiti the first Black republic in the Western Hemisphere. Sounds like something worth studying, right? But most Western textbooks leave it out, or reduce it to a few vague sentences. Why? Because it sent shock waves through the slave-holding world. The US, Britain, Spain, all slave economies at the time, were terrified. If enslaved people could revolt and win in Haiti, what was stopping others? Instead of celebrating Haiti, they punished it. The US refused to recognize the new republic for 60 years. France forced Haiti to pay reparations to its former slave owners, plunging the nation into debt for over a century. European powers economically and politically isolated it. This wasn't just racism, it was fear. The Haitian Revolution shattered the myth of white superiority and colonial invincibility, and that's why it's so rarely taught. Operation Northwoods, when the US planned to attack itself. This one sounds made up. In 1962, the US government, specifically the Department of Defense and Joint Chiefs of Staff, drafted a plan called Operation Northwoods. Its goal, manufacture public support for a war with Cuba. The method, staging fake terrorist attacks on American soil. We're talking about hijacking commercial planes and crashing them, bombing American cities, blowing up U.S. Navy ships, faking the deaths of U.S. citizens, and then blaming it all on Fidel Castro. This wasn't some fringe idea. It was written in official documents. It had signatures. It was presented to the Secretary of Defense. The government literally planned to terrorize its own people to justify war. The only reason it didn't happen, President John F. Kennedy rejected it. But ask yourself, if JFK had said yes, would we have ever known the difference? Operation Northwoods stayed classified for decades. It wasn't until the 1990s that it was declassified and exposed. And even today, most people have never heard of it. Because it forces a terrifying question. What else are we not supposed to know? The Partition of India, when the empire drew a line in blood. In 1947, after nearly 200 years of brutal British colonial rule, India was finally gaining independence. But what should have been a moment of celebration became one of the most violent human tragedies of the 20th century. Why? Because of a decision made by a man named Cyril Radcliffe, a British lawyer who had never set foot in India before being asked to draw its new borders. In just 5 weeks, the result, the partition of India and Pakistan. Overnight, 15 million people were uprooted from their homes. Entire communities were labeled as the wrong religion and told to flee or die. Trains full of refugees arrived at stations with no survivors. Families were split, women abducted, and entire villages were massacred. Death toll between 1 to 2 million, and through it all, the British quietly left. No accountability, no reparations, no apology. In the UK, the partition is often framed as the end of the empire, a peaceful transition of power, a footnote. But it wasn't peaceful. It was chaos by design, a final act of control through division. And the scars of that division are still felt today in the politics of India and Pakistan, in the border conflict of Kashmir, and in the generational trauma passed down by survivors. But ask yourself, why don't more people know the British had a hand in that violence? Because history isn't just written by the victors, it's edited by them, too. The question isn't just why these events were hidden. It's who decided we weren't allowed to learn them. These stories threaten the neat narratives we're taught in school, that revolutions are always noble, that governments always act in good faith, that empires bring progress. But history is messy. It's political, and sometimes the truth is so dangerous, so disruptive, that they'd rather you never hear it at all. But now you have. Which one shocked you the most? Let's talk about it in the comments. Like this video if you think truth matters, even when it's uncomfortable. And hit subscribe because there's so much more they didn't teach us. And next time, we're uncovering the CIA's plan to spy using cats. Yes, real cats. You won't want to miss that one.